So by the end of this video, I hope that this spreadsheet and this information will help you break down the cost of your products so that you can see it on a numbers point of view all the way down to a visual point of view as well. This template is something that we provide for all Gorilla ROI users. We also have a downloadable version, so check the description below. Now let's just say I'm manufacturing tennis balls and I'm trying to sell it on Amazon. Okay, but whether you're selling on Shopify or any other platforms, it's all essentially the same. You have the cost breakdown, which I have on the left side here as COGS. And then you have other variable and fixed cost in your business. And then by using these, you can get the total cost as well as the margins to give you a final version, a final breakdown of exactly how many units you would need to sell, what your amount of total cost actually is, the amount you need to sell in order to break even, and an estimate of exactly how many months that's going to take. A lot of this information also is fairly linear. I'm just using a straight line example. I'm not taking into account seasonality. So for example, tennis balls are not going to sell during winter time, right? It's a summer sport. There's all the tournaments going on during the summer times. So it's definitely going to take a dip in the winter, but let's just ignore that for this example. So today is got the dates. I'm just going to enter this in. The yellow cells represent inputs. And I like to just have a clear differentiation of which cells are for inputs and which cells are for calculations and the ones that I don't need to really mess with. This way, when I see a yellow cell, I can just quickly go in, edit, make some assumptions, and then see how it plays out into the final scenario. I didn't include every single little cost breakdown because every business on Amazon is a little bit different. Somebody doing $10 million in sales is going to be very different to somebody who's doing $10,000 in sales. This is going to fit in with the majority, whether that's 80% or 90% of sellers. This is going to work for the majority of people. The main thing that we start off with is COGS, right? So how much are your costs from your suppliers? So let's say I get a tennis ball, like a pack of 3 or something for $2. For the benefit of the doubt and to be conservative, I've just added some extra rows here. So if you wanted to add, say that like 5 cents was dedicated to like a particular sticker, then you can just edit that and then add 5 cents to it, or maybe it's 0.10. Okay, so maybe that's it. Let's say I want to do another. Let's say I add an instruction manual on how to use some tennis balls, right? So that could be a little booklet, instructions booklet, and this could be like, let's say 15 cents, just a little pager. And then for the purpose of making sure that the quality control is done, let's say I do 1,000 tennis balls. It costs 10 cents per unit for an inspector to come, bounce it, and then verify that it passes all the quality requirements. So I'm just keeping it simple. So those are the 4 main things that I'm just going to keep, but you can see how you can break down and you can keep adding as much as you want. So once I've done that, I want to add in my duties and freight costs, any additional labor cost that is going to go into it. So for example, let's say I ship it into my US warehouse and it costs 10 cents for somebody to just quickly do a check, make sure that everything from China is as it says, and I'm receiving what I'm receiving. I'm receiving tennis balls instead of like hockey pucks or golf balls, etc. Now, once I've sent it into Amazon, I know that this is going to be, say, the FBA fees. I just manually type that in. Any additional fees, so if you're using a 3PL, maybe you're using another middleman service to do some package and handling for you, then you want to add this cost in. And then finally, you get the total sum of the COGS, which is a sum of all of this. So it comes out to $6.48, everything landed by the time it gets into the Amazon warehouse. Okay, so this is essentially my Amazon landed costs. When I multiply this by the number of units that I'm selling, which is 1,000 that I've gotten over here on the right side, it comes out to $6,480. But let's not forget that every business has a variable cost, variable and fixed cost. So what are those? So if you have a very simple business and it's just Amazon, then it's going to be the Amazon FBA fees, the referral fees, any other things like your return rates, your insurance. If you have employees that do some things for you locally, then you want to add that in. So that's part of your variable. If you pay them hourly, that's variable. If you pay them on a salary, that's fixed. Okay, so you don't want to forget about that. I purposely include return rates because this is something that people tend to forget. Remember that if you're selling something for $15 on Amazon, you are not getting $15 back from Amazon on your transaction report. You have returns, and so you have to factor in your net sales. So I like to go through my business reports, and then you can look at it historically, or you can look at it on a per weekly basis, whatever you fancy, and then calculate what your average return rates are. Now you can do it on a per SKU basis, or you can do it on a total account basis. For the sake of this example, I'm doing it at 2.3%. So that's the return. So these are some pretty good tennis balls, I guess. 2.3%. And then including operating costs. What is operating cost? I'm just using a lump sum here. If you want to break down all of your operating costs, you can do that. It's going to make it a little bit more granular and detailed, but I just like to do rules of thumbs. I go to my previous year, say financial returns or reports. I look at it and then I get all the operating expenses divided by my revenue and then get a operating expense or operating cost. And for me, let's say I'm doing it 20%. If you purely strictly say Amazon, you have a pretty efficient business. So let's say you go from China to AWD to FBA, and then Amazon handles everything else. You have nothing in between, right? No employees. It's pretty much purely Amazon. Then you have a really efficient system. So you would be able to say, maybe bring this down even to say 15% or 18%. But I like to keep it at 20%. That includes the Amazon PPC, other fees like your 3PL fees. If you have a warehouse, include your warehousing fees, your insurance, your unemployments, anything else that you need to pay for your state and your federal. And so those are the expenses that is required to run your business. You don't want to underestimate your operating costs because otherwise you're just going to overinflate your profits. So be conservative, use whatever is on your financial returns. And then if you are having a good year, then you can maybe use the latest 3 months because you know that that's going to be projected for the rest of the year. But if it's fairly consistent, use a conservative average number. Now, using these inputs, these variable and fixed costs, it's telling me that my total variable cost is going to be, or total cost is going to be 37.3% of the total revenue. And that's going to be 5.6. So you'll see where this will come into play. So now when I add this by the number of units, it's going to be 1,000 times 5.6 gives me this number for the total variable cost. We add this one, and it's going to give us our total amount that we need to sell in order to break even. And that's what this number is. So it adds, this number up here, adds your total variable costs as well as your product Amazon landed costs. And it's telling me that I need to sell at a minimum $12,075 in order to break even. Anything beyond that is now free and clear, and it's going to keep adding to the bottom line. I'm ordering 1,000 units, and based off this and an estimate of say selling 100 units per month. Now, how did I get 100? Again, this is an example, so I'm just making it up out of thin air. But just looking at this example, I'm getting pretty excited, right? If I had a business like this would scale. I would pour fuel on the fire. But this only works if it's 100. So you could use a research tool like Jungle Scout or all the other tools out there, and then look up what the competitors are doing, eliminate the best sellers, the worst sellers. Let's say you spend an adequate amount of money and you become like inside that bell curve. Let's say you stay conservative. Remember, don't overestimate. stay conservative and stay in like that 1/3, lower 1/3 area, but not at the end, right? That just means that you have no business projection for this. So why even bother studying in the first place? So just be conservative. Let's say, because if you can sell and be profitable at this lower end, then you know that as you can scale and be consistent, it's going to become more profitable. So 100, that's what I'm just going to base it off. And so I've got 800. This break-even units means that it's less than my actual units that I'm ordering. So I've got about 195 units where once I've sold the 805, the remaining 195 is going to be profit. And that's what I like to see. So that when we scale this up from say 1,000, let's say you keep doing really well, you see that it's actually doing what you're expecting, right? Your game plan, this is your game plan, and it's going at this rate. Think about, okay, your second container, this first 1,000, maybe it was like a pallet or so, right? And you're confident. Now, as you scale up and say, okay, let's go all in and go to 10,000 units, then this pretty much scales linearly where you sell 8,000 to break even, but the remaining 2,000 is going to be all profit. And that's when you really start to see the benefits, and that's when things really start rocking. So this is how you can use, rather than, just playing around and just thinking about some aspects and business of the numbers. Yes, it's great, but when you actually include the other variable costs and then you can actually see in a visual way how things are going to trend, that's when you start really understanding the business side of things, and you can play around with the different scenarios. Now, going back or going down, I've got these other information like the definitions that I'm using inside this spreadsheet. On the bottom right side, I've got this summary. So if I'm selling it at $15, it's telling me it's just some formulas that I've put in based on our certain requirements. My gross margin in this case is going to be 56.8%. So that's really good. That's going to give me plenty of margin. Now it's going to tell me that 81 months to break even. That's assuming, if I keep selling at 100, right? So if I'm really going to be confident, then obviously I'd want to see this increasing, and hopefully this will be increasing at the same linear scale as well. You can see from the chart here, the total sales, the cost, and total profit. And so this is going to change. If I change my operating costs from say 25%, and because of the extra efficiency that I'm gaining out of this big sale, if I go down to, let's say I bring it down to 18%, you'll see how my break-even units, break-even sales starts going down. You'll see that there's a slight change as things get better, and then as your profit or your product improves, you're going to be able to massage it and adjust everything, and things are going to get better and better. And now this is the summarized version that you can see where it gives you a nice analysis of what you're seeing from all these numbers into a little form here. And so with a spreadsheet like this, I can now export this, download it as a PDF. And because I've got the data, I've got all the inputs, I can just save it into my folder, into my Google Drive, into a separate, some other location. And that way, when I need to analyze the business on a quarterly basis or on a particular product, every quarter, every year, etc., I can pull this up, see how this turned out, and see whether the objective that we had initially actually turned out to be what it is now. Right? And that way you can analyze, okay, were we over optimistic? Were we pessimistic? And then update some additional numbers and see how things are going to play out. So by utilizing a spreadsheet like this, you're going to be able to grasp the entire business view instead of just making guesses and just playing a game of hope. So I hope this helps out. So look out for the description in the video and download a copy and play around with the numbers for yourself.